This episode is brought to you by Portland Distro. If you like underground music, movies, and more, go to portlanddistro.com for licensed merch, vinyl, CDs, and more. Plug in the discount code 10OFF, TENOFF, for a 10% discount at portlanddistro.com. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Everything Went Black. Welcome, Amy Sabin of Shadowlands from Portland, Oregon. I discovered this band a little over a year ago. I'd been digging deeper into this really cool scene of darker Portland bands, including Murderbait and Dry Wedding. And you guys might refer back to those episodes where I talked to those guys. Shadowlands, very cinematic, dark pop, and very, very great band. And it was really cool to talk to Amy. We cover a lot of topics, including the formation of the band, the cinematic approach to the music, collaboration, that sort of thing. So please check it out. She's been cool enough to provide a playlist for us. And we're starting to get back into that. For a while, we were doing these cool Spotify playlists, and Amy's kicking off the return to that on Everything Went Black. If you dig this show, please check out the other Horsemen of the Podcasting Apocalypse shows. Kicking the week off, we have Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf 666, a great interview show covering luminaries in the horror world, actors, filmmakers, writers, etc. Occasionally, some of us also appear on the show as guests to discuss things, all horror related. Tuesday, Into the Necrosphere, brought to you by Jackie Smith. Wednesday, of course, is Everything Went Black. I return on Thursday for Necromaniacs alongside Mike Scandato and Jeff Kashid. We finished the week strong with Spitball Media featuring Mike Scandato's brother, John Draper. Saturday is a day off. Sunday, Carl Hikara comes at us with Soul Knocks. Carl and I are also doing a collaboration called Darkness Weaves, where we cover the work of Carl Edward Wagner. We just wrapped up phase 1 of this project, which was the short stories in the collection In a Lonely Place. We're moving on to more of Wagner's work. Lurking in the shadows, we have our newest member, Iblis Manifestations, brought to you by Cheyenne of the great band Trivax. If you want to support the show, you can do so on Patreon for as little as $1 a month, $5 a month, or become a sponsor at $25 a month. Each tier gives you access to bonus content as well as early access to the regular shows. And so far we have a really cool community going. Thanks for joining us, Amy. It's interesting how I found out about Shadowlands. Casey from Murderbait and Davey from Dry Wedding, who have both appeared on this show over the years, hipped me to Shadowlands because Casey plays drums in that band. And the whole story is really interesting because my friend Ralph Schmidt, who also sort of co-hosts this show with me, turned me on to Murderbait, and he sent me the EP, and I was right away completely blown away by how awesome that was. And then we both just sort of descended into that Portland world of just really cool dark music, and that's how I found out about Shadowlands. But there's a lot of connections between Dry Wedding, Shadowlands, and the unfortunately late great Murderbait. So yeah, I want to know the story.
Yeah, so late great Murderbait, it rhymes. That's funny. Well, don't be too sad because I think there's going to be another project real soon from those guys. They're getting it worked out. So that's good because they were amazing and are amazing. So I'm actually married to Casey,
Yeah.
and Murder Bait was a band for a long time, and really has been, in my opinion, three or four different bands, but they've sort of kept the same name, and Casey has been the constant and the songwriter and visionary behind all of it. Sometimes with more or less collaboration depending on who the members are. So when we met as friends at first, he was in Murder Bait, and then we started dating, and pretty soon after our relationship was getting more serious, we started playing music together just for fun. And I was like, I'm never going to be in a band with a partner ever again. I'd said that before, but Casey's just such a creative person and such an incredible drummer that it was really hard to say no to. And he's also so easy to work with, that it was kind of a no-brainer to start a project with him. And then at the time, his friend Jason was his roommate, and we all just had a jam session one night, and I invited along a bass player when we decided that we wanted to do something more serious with it. And this bass player and I had been in a band together for different bands together for many years, couple decades, at the risk of dating myself.
Hey, you don't
Yeah,
have to feel uncomfortable about me. I'm probably the oldest guy that listens to this show, so believe me,
got
don't feel
it.
comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very young actually. And yeah, and so we started Shadowlands, and Jason and I, the guitarist at the time, just had a real we had a lot of overlapping musical taste and excitement, and honestly we just really loved spending time together, and had a lot of excitement for being creative together, and that's kind of how that band started. And then Dry Wedding, Davey moved to Portland. I don't remember what year it was, but he was kind of in our circle. Like he and Casey became friends, maybe even before he moved to Portland, and they were communicating online, which is something I'm terrible at, and I just don't like that. I social media, all of it, I'm terrible at it. But those two had a connection. He moved to Portland, they started hanging out. Um, they were friends, and then we all became friends, and eventually, so fast forward, he is in a partnership with my twin sister.
Yeah,
And actually,
that's
yeah, I think it's okay to share that they're actually getting married.
oh,
It's
so
looking pretty good now.
I'll have to
Yeah, so
congratulate him, definitely.
yeah,
Okay.
pretty soon. I mean, I almost outed them, and they hadn't told any family members yet, on a radio show that I was interviewed for a few weeks ago. And I was like, I didn't mention it, I didn't say anything, and Davey said, oh, actually it would have been fine. So thanks for the permission, Davey, to tell a bunch of people your story. So yeah, so they're a couple, and my sister happens to have replaced our guitarist Jason as the guitarist in Shadowlands. Maybe like a year before the pandemic hit, she joined the band. So yeah, it's this very like tight-knit, like happy family now.
Is Yeah, that's the sense I got from it, was that the whole thing kind of came together organically because, both Casey and Davey had been pumping you guys up to me because it's through knowing them, they got to understand the type of music I like, even though the music that I make isn't necessarily within the realm of this type of stuff, but I have a huge fondness and appreciation for, darker pop influenced music. And when I first heard Shadowlands, it was like it sounded old and new at the same time. You know what I mean? Has anyone ever
Yeah,
described that way before?
no one has described it that way, but I really like that because um I worked at a music licensing company for a while here in Portland, and every time I played my music for someone there, they would say, oh, it sounds really 80s. And I hated that because it's really not. I mean, we're not trying to be an 80s band. I mean, they would say it sounds vintage, which would make me laugh because that shows how these were like 20-year-old kids at the time. Or some of them were even younger. But it's not really meant to like fit into one era or point in time. And I draw from a lot of influences. So I really appreciate that you hear it that way.
Well, it's like when I listen to the music, it has this feeling of like anachronistic sort of timelessness, you know, in a way where it could exist in the past and in the present at the same time, you know. And you know, I spent a lot of time with 003 and the Perfect Void single that came out. Like that was what
Mhm.
last year, right?
Mhm.
2022. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was something I would listen to driving around a lot. And it's very good driving music, you know what I mean?
Oh, thanks.
Nighttime, you know, the open highway, like that sort of stuff. And it was something that like we I was in Portland last year. And that was one of the records. Those two pieces were things that I did all the night drives, like the overnight
Yeah.
drive. So I would listen to that all the time. And I was like, this is perfect, like nighttime, you know, driving music, you know,
Yeah.
timeless feel to it.
Oh, thanks.
But yeah, it's so how long has the band been around, and is the band collaborative? Like how collaborative is the process with the band?
Um, God, I don't remember what year we started. It feels like forever and no time at all. I think partially because um of the changing cast a little bit. I mean, having my sister join the band to me was such an intense personal moment that was really wonderful and also a little scary. But that really changed the band for me in a lot of ways, on an emotional level. But getting back to your question, so I want to say it must have been sometime around 2013 2014, 2015, maybe a little later. So we've been doing this for a while. There's actually another demo that we don't even have out for public consumption, but I would say the first year or year and a half, maybe longer, we were just trying to figure out what the heck we were doing. Like what the sound was that we were going for. We were all writing songs. In fact, Casey wrote a song and I'm playing drums on it and he's singing it, and it was licensed for a movie called Terrifier.
Oh, really? It's in that
Uh-huh.
movie?
It
I'm a
is.
huge horror fan, and
Yeah,
that's
us too.
wow. Okay,
And
yeah,
it's funny because
Art the Clown. Yeah.
yep, I haven't watched it. I'm scared to, like, maybe I should watch it tonight. I'm terrified to watch that movie, but I always wanted to have a song, and this is before I was working at a music licensing company. Um, I wanted to have a song in a horror movie, and I just like put it out there on social media, and somebody I knew is related to the person who directs those movies. And anyway, so they had two songs. One was Liberation, which is on 001, and I think Casey's song is on the demo. Maybe it is on 001. I have to go back and look. But anyway, it sounds totally different. It's kind of got like a garage rock vibe going, and the drumming's like much more simplistic because I used to play drums in a garage rock band years ago. Anyway, so yeah, at first we were all writing songs and sort of bringing more fully fleshed out ideas separately and figuring out our direction. And I have never really fronted a band. I was always in the back. I was a drummer, or I was once in a band where we all rotated around on instruments, but I never was like the front person. And I think being in this band with such close friends with such great communication and such a good support system really sort of allowed me to step into my confidence a bit more as a songwriter and a creative person. Um, and I mean, there's just like never any drama. Everything's always so positive that I just felt like agency and empowerment to be a little bit more directive in the band. But I'm a twin. I love collaboration. I love that's like my sweet spot. I love hearing other people's ideas. So I would say like the band is highly collaborative, but I'm sort of the final say in things. Hope that's cool that I'm saying that, guys, when you listen to this. But I think everybody recognizes now that it's kind of I'm sort of the driving force behind it. And I do the bulk of the songwriting at this point, but usually every album has at least one song from each band member. I think 003 didn't have a song from Angie because she was so new in the band, and a lot of 003 was me. But yeah, and like I usually have a concept that I bring, or like a mood or a feeling. Casey says I write songs like a watercolor painting happening. Like you see the mood and the colors, and you don't necessarily see the shape at first, and then suddenly it becomes realized. And he's the opposite. He's like very structured. He writes notes for everyone. I'm like, no, that's not the feeling I'm going for. And then we build it around that. Anyway, so I'm kind of meandering around it, but it is collaborative with a lot of direction coming from me as to like what my vision is.
I feel like that all bands on some level, even the ones that claim to be like, oh yeah, we just go down to the space and jam out and write songs. I still feel like there's always one member that is kind of the visionary in the band, even though it might be more like veering off towards the collaborative side. But I feel like there needs to be one focal point, even though everyone's part of the process. So yeah, I'm not surprised that that's the case here either.
Yeah, totally.
Well, we start on these shows. We used to do a lot of these playlists, and for one reason or the other, they kind of fell off to the wayside. But listening to the Shadowlands, and I'm always interested in like what are the source material or the inspiration for music, because sometimes it surprises me, and so hence that's what the Spotify playlist is. We're bringing that back to Everything Went Black, play more playlists. The interesting thing is, like, in listening to the music, especially now getting prepared for the show, giving it more of a intentional ear, I'm thinking cinematic, like especially the synths, definitely like a cinematic vibe to the songs, as well as this, in some cases there's like a more rock kind of, drums, heavier kind of vibe to it. And then when I looked at your playlist, sure enough, we got Carpenter and we got Sonoya Caves, who I was like, I love that soundtrack, that score for Beyond the Black Rainbow, and also two Portland luminaries appear on your playlist. We got Dead Moon and the Wipers.
Yeah.
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 So all this stuff kind of makes sense to me, you know what I mean? And and I don't know if like Julie Cruz comes to mind too. I don't know if you're a fan or not.
I am. So the song The End, you're probably thinking of, I forgot who I was listening to a lot at when I wrote that song, but I was writing when I was writing most of the songs for that record, I was dealing with some pretty heavy grief, and I was like, okay, this song, I wanted to sound like an 80s prom ballad, but it's gonna be about something really heavy. And then it sort of, we started playing with this idea with the synths, and they're really like patty, like full sounding synths. And Casey helped me he's really great with figuring out how to make original patches for our synthesizer. So we worked on some sounds. Again, it's that like watercolor, like we really let those pads kind of set the tone. And then Jesse threw over this very like Julie Cruz, I forgot what that project is called, but from Twin Peaks, right?
Yeah.
Kind of bass line. So that's definitely a thing. Like I love all of that music. And yeah, I was in sort of the garage rock sort of punk scene for a long time in Portland. And so that's always music that I love. And I still kind of have that at my core. And so that sometimes comes out in the songs. Or if I feel like we're heading too heavy or too far in one direction, I'll kind of be like, I want this song to have more of a punk feel. Or like, Casey, let's like make those drums a little more driving. And also, he's such an incredible drummer. Like I said, I love to take advantage of his skill in that way. So yeah, I'm always going to throw in something kind of fast and dancey too, if I can, because he can play it so well.
I feel like garage music, especially Dead Moon and the Wipers, which are on the playlist here, are not too far removed from like the sort of dark wave, gothic rock kind of vibe. A lot. I mean, like I always think of the Cramps, how the Cramps are like, definitely drawing from this kind of American old style, like Americana, like rockabilly thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they definitely have a lot of irony in their lyrics, but they also have this like incredible darkness in their music too. And
Mm-hmm.
so like that garage sound, even with the reverb guitars, like Poison Ivy's like reverb guitar, and how that crosses over into like the kind of stuff like a band like Shadowlands would do. That doesn't seem unusual that you would be coming out of that scene somewhat.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And I mean, I've always, when I put a Cure song on here, and that's probably because they're a band that I was one of my earliest loves musically, and I sort of abandoned them I just got, burnt out on it, and have like come back to them over and over again. Um, and so I've always kind of had that like post-punk dark wave, like synthesizer sort of um, love, but I've explored a lot musically. I was a jazz vocal performer in college, um, and was like a vocal major, and quickly dropped out of music school and realized it was too structured for me. Um, anyway, so like I love soul music, I love jazz music, I have a lot of interests musically, and I like to feel the freedom to pull from all of those places, and I like that this particular group of individuals that I'm playing with is totally down to go there. They're like, this song doesn't really fit, but that's okay. Like, we have a new song that we're hopefully going to record this year that I like to call our Shadow Bait song, because it reminds me a lot of what some of the stuff Murder Bait was doing before they broke up. It's a little more piano centric. It's really heavy, gets really loud. There's lots of dynamics. So yeah, we don't like to box ourselves in.
Are you a native of Portland, or in Oregon in general? Are you from that part of the country?
Yeah, Angie and I grew up in a little town called Cottage Grove, Oregon, and it's just about 30 minutes south of Eugene, where there's a university. So the town we grew up in was only 7,000 people, but Eugene was just, a short drive. And there was a pretty great little punk scene at the time that we were there, with lots of house shows and like all ages shows happening. Um, so yeah, we're from here. And, I've been in Portland for quite a while now. And so have been lucky enough to really see some incredible bands come and go over the years.
Now, how much of that Northwest sort of sound like influenced you? Because I mean, there's a ton of great bands from that area. As far as like, once again, we talk about the Wipers and Greg Sage, and I feel like he's almost like the you're gonna hate when I say this, but it's like the Northwest, like Bruce Springsteen in some ways.
No, I actually love Bruce Springsteen.
All right, I do too.
I do.
But you know how like, yeah, he's kind of
Yeah,
like this voice of like region. You know what I'm trying to say?
yeah, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of bands from around here are influenced by the Wipers, whether they know it or not, because they're probably listening to a band that was influenced by the Wipers, So definitely, there's a band on the playlist called The Estranged that I just threw on because I was thinking about like bands that I've really Love that I've seen. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but
No, not at all. I was going to ask about
they're
them.
great. Very Wipers. There's a total Wipers vibe. You should check them out. I think they're completely defunct now, but really loved them. So I thought I'd throw them on. Another Portland band that I would say like their influence on me was more just that their songwriting is super interesting and doesn't really fit into boxes neatly, is this band The Hunches that was around from like I don't know 2000-ish to 2007 maybe, and they got pretty big. They were on one of the last John Peel sessions, and they were on In the Red Records. But I'm still friends with, I was friends with that band, but I'm still friends with the guitarist and main songwriter who took lessons from Zoot Horn Rollo from Captain Beefheart. I'm not sure if you're familiar.
Oh yeah.
In Eugene as a teenager. And so his like approach to, I've had so many late night party conversations with him as a young person about like music theory and how limiting it can be, and how we both were sort of trying to learn music theory, but then we just wanted to throw it all away and like burn it down and not understand any of it. So anyway, so like conceptually, I think as a creative person, his music has been pretty influential for me. So that's why I threw one of their songs on there. And then Dead Moon, we actually covered that song one time. That's one of the only covers we've ever done. We always talk about doing covers and it just never happens, but we did cover that song after one of the band members passed away. Now I'm trying to remember. It must have been Andrew. It must have been Loomis. We played that a couple times, and yeah. So also Dead Moon is an influence, of course.
One of the things I like about Dead Moon, besides their music, is that they are this kind of DIY, like these DIY warriors. Like everything they've done is pretty much on their own sort of terms. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
Absolutely.
always, yeah.
And
I'm a big fan of that.
yeah, and also I would say they're not super worried about how polished they are or how perfect their playing is, and it's just all like soul and heart and like just throwing everything they've got into it. And I really like that. I find that really inspiring. um Sometimes perfectionism in music can just make it really sterile. And I think that's one of the things I appreciate the most about Dead Moon, is just like the rawness of their music.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up perfection and all that sort of stuff, and technical, musical proficiency and everything, because I oftentimes find myself surrounded by people who are incredible players. I'm not an incredible player. I barely know any of the theory behind the instrument that I play, and but sometimes that definitely gets in the way. Like when you're well, some of these notes don't make sense. You know what I mean? And it's just like, well, yeah, that discordance is like what sounds, like the right thing to do. And it's important to have a good technique, I guess, but also there's that X factor in music when you're creating stuff that's like, I think what, speaking to what you said, since you have training, vocal training, and but you abandon it though to go for a
Mhm.
more intuitive approach, I guess, right?
Mhm. Yeah, when we started doing opera because you're learning a classical instrument in college, when you're a music major. And when we started doing that, I was like, nope, I'm out, because it sort of changes the way you sing. And it took me a really long time to find my confidence as a vocalist and a front person. I would say I'm kind of a late bloomer, but um, I think I took a lot of like, you're supposed to sound this way from the way I was raised, from going to school. And so finding my own voice um, was a challenge. And I just knew like if I kept on singing opera, that I was just gonna end up with one of those people that has a lot of vibrato, and it just wasn't me. So yeah, I kind of like abandon all of that, but it's valuable. I mean, my sister continued with music school longer than I did, and she also did piano lessons. I got kicked out of piano lessons, like, so that's the funny like differences between us. But it's really helpful because I can play things and the band will be like, what chord is that? I'm like, I don't know, it's these notes. And she's like, it's this, she can translate. Or just like I'll try to explain something to the band, and because she's my twin sister, she's like, this is what Amy's trying to say. She can, and even Casey, though we've been together for a long time, Angie can translate things that nobody else can when I'm trying to communicate an idea. So anyway, tangent, but
So her main, she really is like the piano, I guess, is probably her like main instrument. Maybe guitar is like her, kind of secondary thing.
yeah, guitar, she really, I think she's played a bit of guitar here and there, but piano is her primary instrument. She sings as well. And she really just came in. She was like, hey, I know Jason's leaving the band. I'm interested in playing. And I was a little nervous because, being in a band with your sibling, much less your twin, I was like, are we going to be able to navigate like disagreements about songs? I don't know. I was just nervous about it. And also like I was like, this is my band. And you're also a singer. How's that going to be for you? Um, so we were able to kind of like set parameters with each other, and that was really helpful. But anyway, I completely lost my train of thought. I think you were asking me what her home instrument is, and it is
Yeah.
piano. But I was really impressed with how quickly she jumped in, like learned all of Jason's parts, and then started writing new stuff like right away. She's such a hard worker. It's awesome. I mean, a lot of times we're sitting around having a drink at band practice, shooting the shit, and she's like, "Hey, we got to go play music. Come
Nice.
on."
Taskmaster.
Yeah, it's helpful because I'll be like, talking forever with everyone else in the band, and she's like, let's get the show on the road. So um it's a really nice quality to have.
Yeah, I feel like piano is like the key to everything. It's like I don't know how to play piano. Like I have a I have a keyboard and stuff, but I don't know what the hell, I just hit, you know what
Yeah,
I mean? But if you
yeah.
really understood if you could master that instrument, I feel like everything else kind of falls into place, except for drums.
Mm,
You being a drummer, it's like you and Casey being drummers. Like I totally admire that because I don't have that coordination to do four different things. You know what I mean? I tried and it failed
yeah,
at it.
yeah, it's well, I do think there is like a tie between drums and piano because piano is like a percussive instrument, right? But you're striking different keys, and you have to use different pressure, and the keys are weighted. So I know how to play the piano, but I don't know theory at the level that Angie knows it. So like I know all the keys, I know all the chords, but she knows fancy things like F minor diminished, or I don't know, different things that I was like, I learned it and then it was gone. Um, yeah, so it's helpful to know the piano for sure. Um, I think it translates pretty well to most instruments, and it's really easy. I find like writing on the piano much easier than trying to write on the guitar.
That's
I
interesting.
Yeah, I think visually it's easier for me for some reason. Just to look at, I can look at it and I can sort of see patterns and shapes, and I just never that never I it's been some guitars is something that I've had a really hard time learning.
It's like the only thing I really know how to play, and it's a dime a
Yeah.
dozen. It's like everyone plays guitar, and there's nothing special about it, really. It's whatever. So earlier I was talking about how cinematic the music seems. Like a lot of the material has this cinematic film score quality to it. And are you a fan of film? Is like that's something? And obviously that one track was in the Terrifier movie. I mean, is that
Mhm.
something that informs like your creative process at all, like movies and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because um I'm a fan of film, I'm a fan of certain types of films, but for most movies, I can watch it and then again, like completely forget, and it's like I've never ever seen it. But the ones that I like stick with me forever. And so like Beyond the Black Rainbow, totally know and love, and so like certain types of movies like that one I really like, and the idea of like a really great film score is something that I'm super interested in, and just like the, you know, even when writing an album, like with 003, there was a little bit more of like cohesion between the songs and trying to think of the album as one piece instead of like separate songs put together. And I think of it almost like a movie when I'm thinking about how an album goes together, at least at this point. And I don't really limit myself in that way, but if I can create like a story with the whole collection of songs, I'd love to do that.
Now you do that. Is there any lyrical connection between the songs, or is it like just feelings?
Sometimes there's a lyrical connection. I mean, there's certain themes that I tend to revisit a lot. And at least like with 003, I mentioned it, I was experiencing a lot of grief at the time. A good friend of mine uh essentially committed suicide, but I mean, he died. Was it suicide? Probably. Um, and it was a pretty difficult time. And so a lot of the songs are about like my thoughts and feelings processing his death. And then just like the circumstances around it. So I'm trying to think if every single song on the record is about that. Like certainly any of the lyrics, most of the lyrics that I wrote for that record, I think in some ways touch on them. But I tend to sort of jump around. It's just how my brain works. I like topics are coming from all over the place, and hopefully they connect somewhere and make sense. But um yeah, there tends to be a theme. Not the first two records, not so much. I think we were just kind of writing songs and then picking the ones that made sense, or in some cases, like working to like pull a few extra songs together at the last second to like fill out the record kind of thing. But I think, you know, the next one with that we do, um, we're going to have a little bit more of a cohesive sort of overarching theme or set of themes. I don't know what that is yet.
You are you someone who writes in a notebook all the time? Like you keep a notebook, handy like over several months, or
Yeah, I have one notebook, and I also make notes on my phone because sometimes I don't have my notebook with me, and I'll just make like a voice memo or like write down a phrase or something that comes to mind. Um, or it's just random scraps of paper that I shove into my pockets. That's also a thing that happens. And then eventually I find a way to compile all of it. And if I'm working on a song, I'll go back and look through a bunch of trash in my pockets, or you know, my phone and my notebook, and see like find a way to weave it all together.
Yeah, I do exactly the same thing, believe it or not. I have several, over the course of the years, several volumes of different composition notebooks that I write in. And it's interesting to write that way. And that's why I brought it up, is like, have you ever written something and then months pass by and then these two things kind of connect in like this weird Carl Jungian sort of way, where it's like this weird collective consciousness sort of vibe to just the creation, like the energy of putting these things together in this volume.
Mhm.
Sometimes it lends itself to these weird connections between the words and the phrases. And I don't know, has you ever run into anything like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes I'll find that like something I said or thought before and captured in one of those means suddenly has like a different meaning to me, and is like now tied to this other direction of thought that I have. Um, and I've always tried to write um in a way that's not so like on the nose and specific that it could only have like one derived meaning. I'm moving away from that a little bit because I don't want to limit myself in what I'm saying and the words that I'm using, because it is kind of hard to write that way. But I will, like, I might use a phrase that could mean have like double meanings or mean, I know like it might mean something to me, but it's just vague enough that it could mean something totally different to you. I like writing that way. I think it's, I mean, because I want, if people are listening to the music, I want them to like have their own journey with it. So that's kind of why I try to keep it open-ended like that.
That's interesting because there's definitely two schools of thought with with songwriting where there's like the very much like the almost like a diary of someone writing their very personal, very literal ideas down. And that's like more that experience with music is more like, okay, this is I'm getting to know this person through their lyrics and what they're saying in the songs. And can I relate to that? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
there's the other school of thought, which is more like what you're talking about, where there's these kind of broad objective things that are put out in the songs, and then you bring your own subjectivity to it and assign your own meanings to some of these things, and the words are almost like this like flashcard of what's the word I'm looking for, like it like motivates your brain to like connect it to something.
Like
And
a
I find
Rorschach painting or something. Is that
kind of, yeah,
yeah, the dot
yeah,
series of blobs? Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of somewhat that's like my favorite stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, like the music of the band Neurosis, it's like you listen to the lyrics and those songs and like that there's some heavy content there, but you know that you have to assign your own meaning to it. And that I think is like a very interesting thing with music. And that's, you know, like
Mhm.
with Shadowlands, like it sort of weaves in and out of that. Like there's definitely moments in the lyrics where it's like relating to you're putting your own relationship together with the lyrics, but then there's like parts like in Perfect Void, it's like, this is where it hurts, that's
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
pretty much direct, right
Mhm.
on the money, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And that's
Yeah, but
like,
what is it? Is it I mean that song like I actually in the chorus when I'm singing that, I'm talking about I'm sort of summarizing all the different points I'm making in the verses of all these different experiences that, and so I'm actually talking about like 10 different things at once when I'm saying this is where it hurts. Um, so but yeah, to your point, like a lot of the songs I was thinking about on the end, I am very, there's pretty much only one way to interpret that song. Like it's about suicidal ideation and choosing not to off yourself. Like there's really almost no other way to interpret that song. But you're right, like it does weave in and out. It's not, I don't really like stick with one way of doing it.
no, so what are some of the movies that you find memorable? We touched on that with the cinematic quality to Shadowlands. Like, you're saying some movies you forgot about ever seeing, but what are the ones that actually stick with you?
Um, well, obviously we talked about Beyond the Black Rainbow. I also really enjoyed the movie Mandy. I tend to like horror films. Um, and most of them I tend to remember pretty well. Um, I pretty much love any John Carpenter film, even all the campy stuff too. I'm sort of realizing like I usually if I like something, it has a pretty good soundtrack. I liked the movie Drive. That had a pretty interesting soundtrack when that came out. Yeah, I mean, I feel like all I've been really watching is horror for a long time. I'll see
Yeah,
other
pretty
stuff.
much.
Casey, not Casey, sorry. Ha, funny. Jesse, our bass player, and Davey both have like extensive film knowledge. And so I kind of Jesse's like my librarian of all things that I need to know about films. I'll be like, what's that one movie? He worked for this really cool movie, like VHS and DVD rental place that was in Portland for a long time called Movie Madness. It's still around, but he had that job all through college. And he knows a lot about really obscure films. I also, this is, now revisiting the films as middle-aged person. I loved all of the like John Hughes movies, and some of the pop music that I liked from my childhood, I think was probably really influenced by, like the Psychedelic Furs or that kind of thing. So when I'm saying 80s prom song, I'm sort of thinking about that.
Yeah, like, Love My Way or like Pretty in Pink
Mhm.
or something like that. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm a big fan
Yeah,
of
love
that
that
too.
stuff. And even like there's the movie Valley Girl, like there's some great songs in that movie. Like there's a Sparks song, that band oh my gosh. There's a band that appears in that movie. It's kind of a terrible movie, but I still loved it.
Is that with the
Sorry, I lost you for a sec. Say that
was
again.
the I think they were in there.
I'm still losing you.
Oh, the Plimsolls, were they in that?
Yeah, the Plimsolls.
Yeah, A Million Miles Away. I think that was the track.
Yeah.
Also featuring the great Nicolas Cage, who's in Mandy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yep.
Mandy is probably my favorite movie to come out in the 21st century, honestly. Like that movie rates really high, like on my list of great films. And just in general, Panos Cosmatos, I think is like, I look forward to whatever he's got coming out at some point next. You know what I mean? I think he's the visionary, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, totally agree with that. And I'm recognizing, to me, like how much a really great score helps a movie stick into my brain.
Totally.
Maybe I'm making that up, but it kind of seems like that might be the case. So fun fact though, Beyond the Black Rainbow, we had a nod to that movie in the music video for Newborn. And I made like 25 gallons of homemade black chocolate goo stuff that I'm like submerged in, and then I like come out of it, and then I'm like, it's filmed in reverse, and so I'm in like a white dress, I'm coming out of it backwards, and I'm clean. Anyway, so obviously it's just inspired by the black goo moment. Doesn't at all, didn't, it was a very DIY, like backyard music video. And I made black chocolate goo gravy for probably like 5 hours while Casey was building the set in our backyard. Anyway, we like making DIY music videos a lot. And I think it's that like cinematic thing. Our music lends itself well to that, and I really enjoy the process of like coming up with visuals for songs. So Casey and I usually conceive of that stuff together. We really wanted to make a horror video for the second song on that, which my sister wrote on the Perfect Void, single. And it just never happened, but we were going to do a twin moment from The Shining and a few other things. And yeah, so maybe someday.
Sounds like fun, definitely.
Yeah, it's
So
super
you
fun.
mentioned that you guys are recording some new stuff. So what are the plans for that? Is like another single or EP or something for next year?
Yeah, we've got I think 4 fully complete new songs, and we've got 2 more like in the oven cooking right now. We're still figuring out all the ingredients and putting them together. I'd like to have at least 2 more songs though before we finish, but I have a tendency to just book time in a studio and then motivate myself to finish the last couple songs. And the same thing happens with lyrics. I won't usually I won't lock in my lyrics until we're in the studio and I'm at the microphone. I keep changing them, and sometimes I don't even have any when we first start performing the song, which Casey thinks is hilarious and terrifying, but I'll just make up words on stage. And it's a really good way for me to just, that's part of how I write lyrics, is like what's coming to me in the moment, and then I'll like write it down after the show. So anyway, that's an so when I say we have songs that are done, like they don't necessarily all have lyrics, because this will still be a work in progress until we record, most likely. But this, like the drums, the bass, the synth, and guitar parts are pretty much all there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward looking forward to that release.
Thanks.
So where in general, how do people find information about Shadowlands? I know you have Bandcamp, you got, what are the, you and I, neither one of us like social media that much. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
drop some information about all this stuff to the, so people can
yeah,
find.
we'll put it on there. I mean, I keep trying to farm out social media to the bandmates. Part of it is that I got a new job this year and it's pretty demanding, running a youth arts nonprofit organization. And so like getting on a computer after a long day, after being on a computer all day, is just not how I like to function. But we do Instagram and Facebook still. We're on Bandcamp, Spotify, and Apple Music. We don't have a website anymore. It was just like too much. So I would say, follow us on Instagram and we'll post stuff on there as it comes. And it has been a little bit quiet in this last year because I manage all that stuff and because of this job.
Sure.
But it's all connected. Like I'm leading an organization that does like helps kids in crisis or in experiencing complex trauma, like use music as a way to process what they're going through. So I've sort of let myself really invest in that in this last year, which has made songwriting go a little more slowly. But now it's been a year as of yesterday that I've been with the organization, and I feel like things are kind of settled and I can put a little bit more of myself back into my own creative pursuits. So it's quiet, but there'll be more to come.
Good. Glad to hear that. Definitely. So, Dry Wedding, the defunct Murder Bait, and I'm looking forward. I know that Casey's been working on some other stuff. He sent me some material a few weeks ago, in Shadowlands. So all these guys are different. Everything's very different, but maybe because the members, you guys share members, there's like, the similarity. Are there any other regional or local bands in the area that you enjoy or have something in common with creatively that people should know about? So I try to shout out bands that are good and that sort of thing, and share things like that.
I put a song on the playlist by a band called Dark Swoon from here in Portland, and I absolutely love them. I would say they have some crossover with Shadowlands. I mean, it's a 3-piece synth, guitar, and bass, and they have like a drum machine. But they're just really amazing, and their front person and songwriter Jana is writing a lot of music for film now. Like they just finished their degree at Berkeley, and they're like, that's what they're focusing on, trying to do professionally. So they're good. They're really great. And we've played a lot of shows with them. We were on the same label, Icy Cold, for a minute. Maybe they'll put out more of our stuff. I'm not sure. So they're great. And who else am I really liking right now? Always like the Prids. They're more like shoegaze. They're friends. I don't know, like there's definitely some crossover with them, but I would say maybe not as much as Dark Swoon musically. Gosh, I mean, those are the two. I mean, there's a lot of other great bands in town. There's a lot of new bands. I think a lot did not survive the pandemic. kind
That
of
was
like marriages and relationships, bands also didn't survive.
that was definitely a tough time for people for sure.
Mhm. I'm really excited. There's a punk band called the Red Dawns that has been around for a while. And also they were the main person was in this band, The Observers, and they've started playing shows again, which is cool. He just moved back to Portland a couple years ago, so they're cool. And there's another new band that I saw pop up that I'm really excited to check out. There's one called Cut Piece that I'm excited to check out. So the upside is that there's a lot of new projects that are coming together in the music scene. There's a project called Lizard Skin. I was really into a band called Nick's Division, but I think they've officially broken up. And then let's see, there was another one, but I lost it. I'm not going to make you wait for me to remember.
No, it's
That
great. I mean, I'm looking forward. I mean, I got the playlist. I got to look at the playlist like just a few minutes before we started talking. So, but I'm definitely looking forward to digging into it because there's some stuff that I'm not familiar with on there.
yeah,
And yeah, I'm sure there's a ton of stuff on there that anyone's listening to this is probably interested in, as well as a representation of some Shadowlands material.
absolutely.
But thanks a lot. I appreciate your time. And
Yeah,
tell Casey and Davey I said hello and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care now.
thanks. You too. Thanks for having me. Bye.
You got it. Bye bye.